All right. Calling the meeting to order. We'll start off with a Pledge of Allegiance, and after that we'll follow up with a moment of silence. We'll be doing two tonight, but after we do the first one, I'll go into the second one as to why. Thank you. And I'd like to follow up with another moment of silence for a beloved student of ours, Mackenzie Enos from Martin Middle School. She also attended Orlo Elementary as well. So if we could also please do a moment of silence for Mackenzie Enos as well. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is Student Liaisons, Gayatri Bukta, East Providence High School.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start off by saying that this is my final meeting as student liaison. It's been a great experience, but the seniors' last day is next Friday, so I will not be here for any of the following meetings. Taking over for me in June and then next school year as well is Nate. That's him right there. So I wish him welcome and hope he has good luck with this. All right. Yeah, so with the end of the school year, there's a lot of events going on at East Providence High School, especially for seniors. We've got yearbooks going out and a pizza party for seniors. We've got athletic banquets and band banquets as well at the end of the year. We've got class night and NHS awards night going on. NHS is also going on a senior field trip to Boston. That's going to be happening, I believe, next week. And then we have, of course, prom. The junior-senior prom will be happening on May 20th. And then finally, on graduation day, June 2nd, we have the senior walks through the middle schools where they get to see their old classrooms, their old principals and teachers and all that, and say goodbye one final time, and then graduation that evening at Piercefield. In sports, we've had a pretty good spring season. Last night, we had a softball victory. And then we had our unified basketball senior night recently, where Miss Cleary got a pie to the face because she lost the fundraiser race against Mr. Anderson. In other exciting news, on May 18th, we have the EPHS student art and fashion shows. Fashion shows first at 5:30, and then the art show in the library. We also have an art show coming up on Mother's Day at Hunts Mills. That's with the Rhode Island Historical Society. Over the past couple weeks, we had the Student Culture and Climate Committee. No, sorry. We're having. Okay, sorry. Day one, in collaboration with a couple of our students, held culture and climate assemblies with regards to sexual harassment to try to address some issues with that here. We're also having a culture day this Friday. That's hosted by the Student Culture and Climate Committee. And then also this week we have our blood drive on Thursday, so we're hoping to get good turnout for that. And I think, yep, that's it. That's all I have for tonight. All right, thank you.
Good evening, members of the school committee, Dr. Forand and Mrs. Corsi. My name is Joshua Shanty. I'm an 8th grader at Martin Middle School and the president of the MMS chapter of the National Junior Honor Society. Thank you for having me back this evening as the liaison from MMS to share with you some of the current highlights from Martin Middle School. Our amazing unified basketball team just completed their season, topping it off with the round robin at Portsmouth Middle School. All athletes had a wonderful season. Sticking with sports, our spring season is underway. The Martin softball, baseball, and track and field teams are having tremendous seasons. A highlight for baseball and softball was our Mayor's Cup on April 25th, when Martin and Riverside met at East Providence High School on the brand new fields. Martin baseball took the win with a close 1-0 final score. The Riverside softball team took the win with an equally close 1-0 win. It was a beautiful day full of townie pride. Moving onwards, Martin Middle School Band had their band concert this past week, alongside with the Invitational Honors Band that happened this weekend. These were all great performances, and on behalf of the Martin community, I'd like to give thanks to Mrs. Pimentel, our band director, for all that she's done for us throughout her years at Martin, and we wish her luck as she moves on to be chorus director at Riverside Middle School. Some upcoming events for Martin include the chorus concert on May 17th, our National Junior Honor Society induction ceremony, which will be held on June 1st, and our awards night on June 7th. These are all events that we're highly looking forward to. Last month, during the week of April 23rd, Martin 8th graders went on an overnight field trip to Boston. I can say from personal experience that everyone had an amazing time and loved the entire experience. With that, these are our current updates, and there are many more that are soon to come. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay. Well, thank you again for this opportunity, and I look forward to seeing you guys next month. And I'd like to welcome Janelle Albert from Riverside Middle School.
Good evening, school committee members, Dr. Ferran and Ms. Corsi. It is a pleasure to be back here this evening. My name is Janelle Albert, and I am the president of the National Junior Honor Society at Riverside Middle School. As the school year sadly comes to an end, here are some memorable things that are coming up and some things that have already happened. As a school, we recently finished YCAS, and we also participated in a school raffle, which helped encourage students to do their best. Our band and chorus groups went to festival earlier in April and held by the Rhode Island Musical Education Association, with the band winning superior and the chorus winning excellent. In school, we have had many groups come to speaking classes, such as the Save the Bay and Science classes and the East Providence Prevention Coalition in health classes. On the same note, today we had a drunk prevention and awareness assembly for all students with Speaker Ray Loanzo, sponsored by the EPPC. In the sports world, our unified basketball season came to an end on Friday, where they played a round-robin tournament and won all 3 games they participated in. Our baseball team is working hard, and our softball team has had an amazing season, with them winning the Mayor's Cup against Martin with a streak of 4-0. Our track teams had an amazing start to their season. Some upcoming events include the band and school performance on May 18th. Something new that is happening in our school is the first ever art show on May 25th. And on the same day, we have our annual spring chorus performance. And then the DC trip on May 31st. In June, we have events such as the senior walk on June 2nd, where students from the high school will come back to our halls. In contrast to the seniors, on June 5th, we have the 7th grade induction ceremony, where chosen 7th graders will start their journey as future leaders of the National Junior Honor Society. On the award sides, we have the 8th grade awards on June 7th and the Viking Awards on June 13th. For the graduating 8th grades, we have a cookout in Cambridge June 14th and the family celebration on June 15th, which will serve as a graduation ceremony for them. We also received a grant for our library. Certainly some noteworthy happenings. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you for having me here, and have a good night.
Next item, please.
Next item is consent agenda.
I'd like to entertain a motion to remove item 4 from the consent agenda just for additional discussion or comments.
I'll make the motion to remove item 4.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you.
So at this time, I'd like to recognize 2 retirements that we have for next year. The first is Valerie Lawson, social studies teacher at East Providence High School, effective the end of the 2022-23 school year after 33 years with the district. I would also like to recognize Principal Fatima Avila, who's here tonight, current principal at Silver Spring Elementary School. Mrs. Avila started with the district in 1999 as a teacher. She became principal at Kent Heights Elementary School in 2007. She then went on to be principal of Martin Middle School and will end her career at Silver Springs Elementary School since 2017. We'd like to thank her for her 24 years of dedicated service to the school department, and wish her a happy and healthy retirement.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, including item 4 as well.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. At this time, I'd entertain also a motion to move up the building committee report, seeing that we have the presenters here present. I prefer not to have them wait. It's also going to potentially be extensive, and I'd like to make sure that we also have enough time for any questions or comments. So I'll entertain a motion to move up item 8.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I don't mind making this second, but can we, for the sake of school tomorrow, allow for public comment first and PTO, EPSD report?
Okay, so a motion to move it, let's see.
What's next? Public comments.
Right, but I would like it to come first if possible.
So in between public comment and the reports? Or
Yeah, just so that if there's anybody here that has to go to school tomorrow.
So I'll entertain a vote to move the item 8 for the building committee report in between public comments and the reports, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you're okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Public comment. Ms. Chrissy Rossi.
Thank you. I would like to ask that you abandon the policy that was introduced at the last school committee meeting. This policy does a complete disservice to the district. You are limiting your own powers and abilities being a school committee member. And Jess, you and I hardly ever see eye to eye on stuff, and I found myself rooting for you last week. So obviously there is more to this policy than what is being, excuse me, what is being shown, although it's not being shown. It was a read, but you didn't read it. And I'm not sure how you get a copy of a policy that isn't a policy yet, so there's that. But just based on your conversations last week, I also feel it's very unfair to put your one and only employee in a position where she has to dictate to you where you can and cannot go. As a courtesy, I would imagine any of you entering schools at least brings it to your employee's attention, since she does have care and control. But that's your job. That's what you are elected to do. And under Title 16, you have that right. You can walk into any school at any time to look around and make sure it's a fit facility. So that's where I'll leave it, and please don't vote for this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ben Nascimento.
We have a unified basketball game on Thursday at the high school. The game starts at 4:30. You have invite to come and support us. If you can't make it, the game will be live streamed at East Providence High School. If we win, we go to move on the state championship game. Watch is on Saturday at 12:30. The game will be at Hedgekin High School. Thank you for so much.
Thank you. Mr. Isaiah Juan Luis.
Good evening. My name is Isaiah Jean-Louis. I'm a student here at EP High School. I'm a senior. I briefly spoke with a few of you guys based on the student handbook. I actually want to ask you guys a few questions, and they're more of personal opinions on how you feel the student handbook, and do you feel as if it's fair or just to students in the school? So if any of you would like to comment on that while I'm up here.
And if you have any updates too, you feel free to expand.
So you probably saw the survey that went out to the high school.
Yep.
So right now we're in the process of looking at all of the information that we've gathered.
Yep.
We actually also have a committee together that's with a representative from each school that will be taking a look at the handbook and looking at the student code of conduct, specifically the dress code and the cell phone policy, as those seem to be generating the most concern. So we do recognize that there are some things in there that are outdated, and we're taking all of the feedback that we've gathered and looking at making changes to it.
Thank you.
And there's actually been some really, really good feedback. So we appreciate that.
Yep.
So it's exciting. It's exciting to get student feedback, and that's what we want.
Yeah, me and my fellow classmates had gone over this in our journalism class, and we spoke to our teacher, Ms. Cornier, about how changes could be made and haven't been made yet, but should be made to the East Providence student handbook.
If you have anything additional that you want to give us, like I said, we have the survey. I know the school committee was part of those classes. You got to speak with all of them. But if there's anything else that you want, you can either email it to me. I'm happy to come over to your classroom. Just let me know.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for coming and speaking about it.
Thank you, again, for making the time to attend. We always encourage our students to attend a meeting when possible, and it's great to see that we had a student attend, so thank you. Ms. Tori Jessup Crowley.
Hello. I am not opposed, actually, because I know that last month you guys were, well, the last meeting I should say, you guys were discussing and where to put the public speaking part, and to have better input as a parent, I would appreciate it probably before the action items, so that way we are fully aware of what we want to make a comment on in regards to whatever the superintendent's report might be, or whatever the director of teaching's report might be. Having a public comment now, I don't know what they're going to talk about and how it's going to affect myself or my children, so if you want any parent input, that's just a little side note. Okay, just to follow up on a few different things that I have come to you in the past about in regards to, let me just start in the beginning, when I had asked for some information on the middle school grading. I have yet to receive any follow-up from that, to have a better accuracy on my children and their what their grades actually mean. And then also following up on my request to have parent workshops. When we gave our parents our iReady scores, we didn't give them an explanation or any informational workshops on how to help their child. With the Right to Read Act and our district following suit with the science of reading, I know this is a journey, and I'm very thankful that we have a great journey ahead of us. But as a parent, and I pretty sure I can speak for other parents that don't fully understand what that iReady score means, what those subcategories mean, and for that, a lot of parents might not know what MTSS is, how that affects their student, what RTI is, and what a PLP is. All of those affect our regular ed students. I'm very fortunate to work with UPLAC on the other side in regards to our special needs children, so I'm able to inform those parents, but as a regular ed students and parents, there hasn't been a lot of workshops and information out there, and I would really appreciate it if we could do something, and I'm willing and able. I am more than willing and able to help whoever in our district, because I know that admin right now is a little stretched, having to fill up other positions, but it's important to me. Literacy is important to me, and I know it's important to all of you as well. And as a parent, I think a better informed parent is a better parent to advocate for their children and their children's needs. Also, just want to let you know that two things. You were asking at the just last meeting, whose door do we knock on to get those fundings that we need for our district? Well, we do know, and that's called the City Council and Mayor Bob, because we are on the brink of losing $500,000 for our district, and we really need more funding. We are underfunded in our school district, and we need more money. And that money is going to go straight towards the literacy and math that we need to boost up our children. That's all. Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item is the building committee report.
I'd like to welcome any one of our presenters to start off. I'm not too sure. All right. Thank you. And for the committee, I welcome anyone to set up on the first row to be able to hear the presentation and watch the presentation as well. If you'd like, we can always come back up here for questions, or we can also do it up there at the end of the presentation. So if you like to have the option, take your microphone as well. Thank you, Ms. DeSilva. You can start.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Chair. Good evening, school committee members, Dr. Ferrand, Ms. Corsi. We're here before you today to go over the Waddington Elementary School. We are presenting submission of the schematic design documents to RIDE for their stage 3 design review. We have been working through the process with the administration and the district to really confirm the scope of work. We can actually go to the schedule slide. There we go. So we are anticipating, with your approval and consent, to submit to RIDE next week. We have gone through the estimate. And then just to follow up on that, we will actually be before the school committee again in July and then again in September for our final approval. And I will actually turn it over to our other team members from AI3, Mr. Justin Tebow.
Thank you, Ann. Good evening, everyone. Justin Tebow, principal at AI3 Architects. Before I continue on with the slides, I just want to recognize two of my colleagues here from AI3, Andrew Canine and Jonathan Quell, working on the Riverside and the Waddington projects. So, as Ann mentioned, we're presenting the Stage 3 schematic design submission tonight, looking for a vote to submit to RIDE. It's continuing on the process here that falls in line with the funding agreement from RIDE, meeting all their regulations and requirements. If we go to the next slide, please. So the scope of this project, Waddington Elementary School, is really broken down into 2 tracks. It's broken down into track 1, highlighted in blue, and track 2, highlighted in that yellowish orangish color. The reason why there are 2 tracks is initially, when the projects were evaluated, track 1 became the priority items. These are the items that were required for the Waddington Elementary School. In walkthroughs and in conversations with RIDE last year, prior to submitting, RIDE informed the district that submit everything, break it out as track 2. If there's additional funding, depending on what grants are and so forth, you may be able to pull some of those track 2 items in. So from day 1, track 1 has always been the priority. Track 2 items are bonus, as you will, depending on funding agreements. So looking at track 1 items, they impact the original building, which we're calling, it's basically this portion here, the addition, which is the newer portion of the building, that 2-story portion at the back, and then the entire building. The original building, looking at renovating the existing classroom entries to make them accessible. So that's why there's blue dots scattered around the entire the original building. Looking at renovating the single-use toilet rooms to create accessible toilet rooms globally. So essentially every toilet room is going to be renovated for universal access. In the addition portion, that is actually where a majority of the scope is going to be focused. Looking at constructing new full-height partitions. If you recall, there are some open classrooms from classroom to corridor. This line item here actually infills that for acoustic separation and for better control of students. It's also infilling the depressed slab within that second floor. There are stepped floors within the second floor, so providing a level surface within the classroom for universal access. By infilling that floor, we need to replace the exterior windows as well for the second floor classroom, so that's included in the scope. It's also looking at adding security to some of the existing doors at the top. Installing a new floor in the cafeteria, renovating handrails, renovating the toilets for compliance and accessibility. And then the 2 other bigger items here for the entire building is installing a new fire protection and sprinkler system globally, as well as adding air source heat pumps and dehumidification for all rooms. So it's a new heating system and dehumidification to address the moisture concerns that the district is currently witnessing, as well as to ensure a new heating system for consistency throughout all spaces. So that summarizes track 1. The track 2 items that were included is additional site improvements. So it's talking about walkways and so forth, a gymnasium addition, which is this component here, 8,600 square feet based on that. Replacing the remaining exterior doors and windows throughout the entire facility, and then adding in a handful of additional casework items, storage to all the existing classrooms. So that is the breakdown between the 2 tracks. Again, track 1 was identified as the priority. Track 2 was submitted as a nice to have depending on funding. Next slide, please. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Ann to talk total project budget, and then I'll talk after about how we're going to get to that total project budget.
So before you is the project budget that we will be submitting to RIDE. The total project budget of the $19.5 million in the yellow line below is what was presented originally as part of the Stage 2 RIDE submission. So construction cost at 15.2. This includes owner construction contingency and a swing space allowance for any improvements that we need to make to accommodate swing space as work takes place. Soft costs for A&E fees as well as owner's project management fees have been updated on what is actually encumbered currently. And then other owner project soft costs are allowances currently based on past experience on work that have been done with the district in the past. We also are carrying a fixed soft cost contingency fee, which really makes up the whole $19.5 million project budget for just Tract 1. Again, just to reiterate what Justin had mentioned earlier, we are only submitting the schematic design Stage 3 for Tract 1 only. And the MOA below of the $28.8 million, that's what was approved by RIDE in the Stage 2 approval, but based on the bond that was approved and voted on in November, we need to hold the 19.5 presented project budget for Waddington Elementary School. Next slide. Next slide.
So that 19.5 million target, that's really what we need to work to. We had the documents professionally estimated and breaking out Tract 1 and Tract 2 scope. Just looking specifically at Tract 1, we had to reduce the trade costs by just over $300,000. So if you recall from the presentation a month ago for Martin, when I was up here, we typically proceed with these budget management, alignment, value engineering exercises by generating these 4 categories on the left. The first one being alternates. This is a clean scope item that could be located above the line, carried through the design process, bid as a separate line item, and if bids come in favorable, it could be accepted at the time of bidding. If there wasn't enough funding available, then it fades away, it's not included with the project. So if there's scope items that are easily separated, that is an option. And then the other 3 categories here, level 1, level 2, and level 3 priority items. We categorize these based on our experience with items that we recommend, items that are typical in school construction for the level 1. Level 2 are items that are open for discussion. They may be district-specific requirements, requests, so forth. And then level 3 is really the last resort. We don't want to get down there and touch it if at all possible. It's sort of a little bit of the safety net. So I'm happy to report that with one item shifted, and the next slide will be a little bit more detailed, but within the alternate category, we identified one alternate, and then we took, I'd say roughly 2/3 of the level 1 priority items to get us onto the project budget. We were actually, based on scope and clean separations of work, the budget was able to be reduced by $384,000, slightly exceeding our $302,000 goal, without having to dip into any of these lower categories and or taking all of priority 1. So next slide, please. So those specific items, the one alternate item that we identified is the new ADA lift at 2 of the stairs. 2 of the stairs within that newer part of the building have the lifts. These are serviced on a yearly service contract, but we priced these separately to see what the cost would be to replace them with a similar system, a similar lift, just a newer version of it. That line item, as you can see on the right down here, is approximately $107,000 for those 2 lifts. The level 1 items that we identified, again, breaking it a little bit further, just for clarity's sake, building exterior, no items taken. building interior, modifying some of the finishes based on feedback from Mr. Murphy, as well as looking at the cost estimates based on durability, based on maintenance, based on the scope and everything. So we're looking at using poured epoxy floors in the bathroom instead of tile. We're looking at using vinyl wall panels instead of tile in the restrooms. And we're looking at removing the laminate around some of the entry soffits up high. We'll address the classroom entries with painted drywall instead of laminate panels. They're up high enough. They're not liable, or they're not likely to be abused by students and so forth because they're high up. And then the other item here is within the systems category. This item here is regarding security switches. It's actually just a realignment within the estimates confirming scope. We actually found a double dip item in the estimates. So this item here was a double dip, and we are able to take it out and only count it once. So all of these level 1 items equals approximately, it's $276,000 deduct. So you add the alternate and the level 1 together, you're at the $384,000 project savings. And again, the target was 302, so we have a little bit of a buffer. As the project continues along, that buffer will become important just to make sure we remain on budget. So, next slide, please. So what is going to be submitted to RIDE next week? This is very similar to what was shown at Martin. This aligns with their submission portal. So it's project narratives, it's drawings, it's the cost estimates, it's the VE list that I just showed you. They need to understand how the project has been kept on budget and how it remains on budget. Looking at additional geotechnical reports and all the other items here you can see on the screen. So similar to Martin, just a little bit smaller scope, but similar items are going to be submitted as the process continues on. So I'll pause here for Waddington to see if there's any additional questions before moving on to Riverside.
Any questions from the committee so far?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll actually turn it over and to do an intro for Riverside, and then we'll continue with the slides.
Next slide, please. Okay, and so Riverside Middle School, we submitted the Facilities Equity Initiative application the end of last year. There were quite a few applications that we submitted. The one that was approved by RIDE for the Facilities Equity Initiative was the Riverside Middle School project, select scope of work there. Next slide, please. So to keep us on target, because there is a sunset date for FEI funding, which is end of the summer 2024, we do need to submit here the SD schematic design submission this month, just knowing that we need to actually move forward with DD, design, development, design, and CD submission as well. So we have worked through, again, with administration on just scope of work, confirming that, and we are currently submitting the estimate previously shown and submitted at the end of last year. We actually have a meeting scheduled for RIDE to review our submission as well, and we'll continue to have that basically at the same cadence of proposing the submissions to the school committee. With that, I'll turn it back over to Justin.
Thanks, Anne. So next slide, please. So again, it's an accelerated schedule. However, the scope is significantly smaller. Just to refamiliarize everybody, there were 11 applications submitted at the end of last year for FEI projects from the East Providence District. 8 of those items were identified as priority. As Anne mentioned, RIDE has identified 3 to partially fund. It's application 7, application 8, and application 9. And the focus of this submission and the process moving forward is going to be on application 7 and application 8. So application 7 is related to the Library Media Center, and it's converting it into a 21st century library media center. So it's upgrading the furniture, it's upgrading the technology, it's upgrading the space to be more of a maker-builder space, collaborative space to truly support the district. It also provides parity from Riverside to Martin once Martin is complete. Application 8 is modernization of the existing science classrooms into science labs. So this targets 6 of the 8 science classrooms and updates them with modern amenities for a modern science lab, including casework, including utilities, including technology, flooring, etc., to really support the students in the district in delivering the education within those spaces. Application 9 is related to some outdoor classroom items. However, as I mentioned, it's not moving forward. The focus is really on the interior spaces within Riverside. Next slide, please. So graphically, what that means, the two number 7s, it's first floor plan on the left, second floor plan on the right. Right in the center is identifying the scope of work for the Library Media Center in the purplish color, and then the yellow color, number 8, those are the science classrooms that are being upgraded to labs throughout the Riverside Middle School project. Next slide, please. So don't expect you to read this. It's in your packet, more of as a refresher, but this was snippets, or this was pages from the actual application for the FEI projects. It identifies the need and the driver for these decisions, why they are a priority within the district, and really how it supports the district's educational goals. Next slide, please. Some of the photos that was also included, just to refresh everybody as far as what the current amenities are at Riverside. So you can see on the left is of the existing Library Media Center, utilizing more of the traditional quote-unquote library furniture. So this would be a renovated space. It would be furniture to support flexible learning. It would be more technology-based, as that is where everything is headed. It will also include the maker-builder hands-on learning space to support that curriculum within the district. On the right side is application 8. These are some photos of the existing science labs. Again, just highlighting the current casework, storage amenities and configurations. These would be renovated, or 6 of these spaces would be renovated to support 21st century learning within the science labs. And again, creating parity between Riverside and Martin. Next slide, please. So looking at total project budgets for these, obviously the scope is much smaller. The estimated project cost, the first line up here, what identified in the FEI application at the end of last year. Library Media Center is roughly $2.3 million. The science classrooms was identified at just shy of $1.2 million. RIDE reviewed the documents in the submission and has allocated just over $1.3 million for the Library Media Center component, and just shy of $700,000 for the science classroom component. So that leaves the delta at the bottom here of just under $1 million for the Library Media Center and just under $500,000 for the science classrooms, the delta for district funding. Again, total project costs are identified on the right. These are the numbers that will be held throughout the design process moving forward, but just breaking down the logistics of all of this. So I will pause. Actually, one more, next slide, please. So the submission to RIDE is going to be slightly different. It's obviously a significant smaller scope. So similar items, there'll be narratives, there'll be descriptions, there'll be drawings, project costs, etc. But some items just won't be included because there is no scope associated with it. So it's a smaller submission. And the items, what you see on the screen and what are in your packet, represent what that submission would be. So pause for questions, comments on Riverside.
Any comments from the committee so far?
Anything from you? I think that's all we had to present. So, thank you.
Justin, just one question actually. For the science classrooms, is there a reason why we did only 6 out of the 8?
Yeah, so it was partially based upon funding, but it was also partially based on utilization and scheduling components and stuff. So it didn't make sense to necessarily do all of them for utilization and funding. So.
Thank you.
We actually have 6 teams, so really only 6 of the science rooms are in use right now.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee or comments about this, about the presentation, or for any of our presenters tonight? Okay. I'll entertain a vote to move up the action items 1, 2, and 3. I'm sure our visitors would appreciate kind of knowing where we stand before holding them any longer.
I'll
Yes.
make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to approve the Waddington Elementary School Stage 3 schematic design, approval for submittal to RIDE, as well as the Riverside Middle School Facility Equity Initiative schematic design and submission for submittal to RIDE. And then lastly, a vote on the Riverside Middle School Facility Equity Initiative proposals. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Can I just quickly just make a note? It wouldn't be me if I didn't say it, that I still am in favor in the need for the gymnasium at Waddington. I know it's on the second track, and I was there last night and sat through it all. I completely understand, but space is limited there. It's so limited that I know this is gonna change a lot, but it's not adding square footage. It's really adding 100 square feet, if that, per classroom. Like, it's really not adding square footage, and that school needs square footage. So I'm obviously for the renovation, and it needs to be done, but because it needs heat and number one, it needs square footage, and this unfortunately does not add a lot of square footage to the existing school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, really quick, just like a follow-up on that. Is there an estimated cost associated with track 2 that I'm not seeing?
Justin, please, or Anne, thank you.
Yeah.
There is an estimated cost for track 2. We don't have it included in this package because we're not submitting it to RIDE, but we can certainly share that if that's.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I could also just ask really quickly, sorry. I don't expect like an exact answer, but if you had to give like a ballpark estimate, what would be like the estimated percentage chance that the track 2 items would be completed? Like the likelihood that there would be enough funding left over to complete them?
With the estimates that we received just for schematic design, there is no room to accomplish track 2.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is PTO, PTA, EPLAC reports.
Just a quick EPLAC report. We do have our annual awards recognition night tomorrow. We are at full capacity, and we are really excited to have it and host all of you as well. We do have one request. We've been having an issue with IT in our email address. If anyone can help us with that. Currently, all of our emails and being secretary, sending out a lot of emails this past few months to all of our honorees, it says Mary Nascimento, and it's not coming from Mary Nascimento, it's coming from EPLAC. So we need to find a way to fix that because everything right now is, if you send an email to us at EPLAC, it goes to us via Mary Nascimento. And when we reply to an EPLAC inquiry, like I had a reply back to all the people, they were assuming that it was Mary replying or it's Mary's email, because when we reply, it comes through Mary's email. So her and I are asking for some help and guidance with that. We've put in IT tickets a few times, but we haven't had any solution to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is superintendent's report. Dr. Ferrand.
I'd like to do a recognition of Coach Tom Galligan. He was just awarded the Rhode Island Wrestling Hall of Fame induction, and I think that was about a week ago. And he's also a construction teacher here at the CTC, and he has really shown his true dedication, not just to the sport, but also in the classroom, has really impacted a lot of students' lives and a lot of his students as well that is on the team that he coaches. So I wanted to, again, give him a shout out and also let him know, thank you for your dedication and thank you for staying in East Providence and really showing what Townie Pride is. Really, really happy to see that the Rhode Island Hall of Fame recognized him as someone that has really been a huge impact in the community.
He also was very grateful that he was being honored tonight. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here, but he wanted to make sure that I passed that along to you, that he wasn't able to be here, but he was thankful. So today we celebrated the 2023 Teacher of the Year for the district. So we had a little ceremony before the school committee meeting where we recognized all of the individual school winners. I'd like to just read them off. Keith Anderson, East Providence High School; Kristen Ann Pinero, Riverside; Jody Audette, Martin; Kimberly Sherman, Myron Francis; Rebecca Vieira, Hennessy; Regina Jones, Kent Heights; Orlo, Nicole Cram; Pre-K, Kristen Johnson; Silver Spring, Abigail Jaffa; Waddington, Jalen Alves; and White Neck, Rafi Rashduni. Our Teacher of the Year for the district is Kristen Ann Pinero from Riverside Middle School. She will go on as the representative from the East Providence School District for the State Teacher of the Year. So, an amazing group of people and an amazing group of teachers, so we're very proud. So I don't have a lot for the facilities update. As you can see, we have a lot going on. So we spend many hours a week in construction meetings with the 3 major projects we have going on at Martin, Waddington, and Riverside, and we are continuing to work through the remaining issues on the high school. In addition, we also have the window projects at Silver Spring and Orlo, which are major projects. The windows were actually delivered, so we are just waiting for the last day of school to get those projects started, but they are on site at this point. We posted our request for bids for the Oldham construction project, which is just a small project so that we can move all of the pre-K into Oldham for next year, so we can get the construction started at Martin. So that is out to bid right now. And that's really all I have as far as updates for facilities. Any questions?
I just have a question. Could I check with him, if I could get a copy of that contract for the window project, just so I could see if we get the start date, the completion date? I had asked that when we first approved that, so if we can get that within the next week, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sharon, can you just note that? Thank you. And finance update, I just have one item to point out for you. So if you look at your finance report, the 55650, in previous finance reports, we had reported the fiscal year 2023 year-to-date expenditures column was the same as last year. After review with the special education department, our enrollment in the out-of-state educational collaborative is significantly less than previous years. So that amount listed in the year-to-date expenditure column now is the actual encumbrance for the year. So that's the actual amount that we'll spend on out-of-state, out-of-district tuition. While that one is lower, our in-state tuition is higher. So that really will be adjusted to the other line item. And we continue to see an increase in students coming to us in out-of-district placements, which is really having an impact. So I'll continue to update you on that as we go along. Any questions on that? Otherwise, the finance report is pretty much the same.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is Director of Teaching and Learning Report, Lindsay Riley.
Good evening. I have a brief update on our strategic planning process that I've given some information about in little pieces as the year has progressed. So I have just a couple of slides. Go to the next slide, please. This gives us a really sort of big picture of the leadership. I believe there was a slide right before this, if you don't mind. Thank you. So this is how we have come to develop our district strategic plan this year. If you recall, we pulled a group of approximately 60 stakeholders together at the start of the year that participated in a series that led to our draft vision of a graduate statement and the pillars of our district strategic plan, which is a 3-year improvement plan. The formation of that plan leads to and guides individual schools and school improvement teams to develop their school-based annual plans. What I've added in red is just our little timeline. So the 3-year district strategic plan is due to ride on June 1st, and the plan will begin in the fall of 23. School teams are submitting their plans to the superintendent in June for review and feedback for submission to RIDE in on July 1st. Again, for the start of the 23-24 school year. These plans are comprehensive, but will be living documents that we will guide and revise as we move forward and monitor progress towards our goals. Next slide, please. The leadership team spent some time this summer thinking about the leadership support that was called upon when we looked at what these new strategic plans entailed. And this is just a snapshot sort of review of the year-long leadership plan and support for administrators with a focus district-wide on leading for equity. Next slide, please. It's a little glimpse at our draft vision of a graduate that will guide and lead our strategic planning work and our school-based work that was developed with the input and feedback of stakeholders. And it has these 6 competencies that lead it around growth mindset, wellness, critical thinking, engaged members of society, self-determination, and communication. Next slide, please. Also, with the support of stakeholders, our district strategic plan is designed around 4 major priorities: academic excellence for all students, social emotional support to support academic learning, educator focus on continuous improvement, which is our commitment to professional learning, and family and community engagement. Next slide. And then the final slides just take us through a really high-level overview of those 4 priority areas. Within each of those areas, there are initiatives, action plans, tools for us to monitor our progress towards those goals, and a focus on how we'll lead for equity in each of those areas. The first is our commitment to academic excellence for every student around knowledge, skills, and habits of mind that will lead us to that vision of a graduate. Next slide, please. Priority 2 is around social emotional skills to support academic learning. We know that these must be taught and supported alongside academic learning for all students across the grade levels. Next slide, please. Priority 3 is around our shared leadership, our culture of continuous improvement, and the professional learning that will provide all staff and stakeholders to reach those goals. And finally, next slide, please. Step 4 is our valuing of families as equal partners in education, recognizing the knowledge that they hold as partners, and to ultimately the success of their children. So we look forward to presenting and sharing with you the completed document. We have a timeline of Friday, our internal timeline for that. The major framework of the district strategic plan was already accessible to school leaders and SIT teams, both for feedback but also to develop school improvement plans. And so the goal of the district strategic plan is somewhat long-term and to create enough of a big picture vision and goals for moving forward, but still allowing school-based teams to make school-level decisions that are truly data-based and unique to their own school needs. And so we believe that the two will work together, and they'll continue to be living documents that we work from, really moving away from the way I think a lot of times school improvement plans were done before, which more of compliance driven. Our goal is this to be a living document that really drives the work that we do. Any questions?
Questions from the committee?
So when schools are analyzing the data, do they look at student subgroup data to see which student subgroups tend to have the most need?
Yes. Yeah, those are necessary, required parts. I mean, it is practice, but it is a significant component of these plans. Yes.
Any other questions from the committee? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item is discussion items.
Student and staff recognition at the school committee meetings. I know, Superintendent, do you have any update from the last discussion that we had by any chance? Or recommendations?
I do not. I didn't know that. I just thought that this was another discussion within the group as how to recognize people. Actually, we did talk tonight. Sorry,
It's
so much going on.
I wasn't gonna call.
No, you can call me out on it. Yes, we did have a conversation, but
Yeah, it was recent
do you
though,
wanna-
so
yeah.
if you want me
Sorry.
to go on.
Yeah, you can go
Okay,
right ahead.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
No.
The superintendent had mentioned, proposing some sort of system for this upcoming school year, especially since we're in May and graduations are coming up. But to have the school administrators kind of propose some people up, I think was it to yourself, and then from there we would kind of look at who was recommended, and we can kind of make a determination from there who we can recognize for whichever either good deed or excellent professional performance in that day or moment type of thing. So that way it's more of an optional thing, and they don't feel like it's like they need to come up with someone for every meeting that we have. So at least making sure that they're informed, like we are definitely accepting recommendations for recognition for plethora of reasons. So that's kind of the gist that I got, at least for this upcoming school year. That way, they can kind of inform everyone of in their own schools, letting them inform the principal or whichever administrator to contact that person to put forward a name for us. So that was kind of the gist that we covered.
I remember the conversation now. So we have, I'm sure you see our staff newsletter that we send out monthly. So we actually had been talking about ways to recognize staff and giving people an opportunity to nominate staff that are doing great things in the district. So we had talked about for next year having a shout out section in the newsletter and taking recommendations. So we were going to create a Google form for that.
Would that be something that kind of is fitting the vision that you kind of had? I wanted to get your feedback and the committee's feedback.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was looking for, and I think to add on to that, I completely agree that it doesn't have to be something that is at our meetings every single month if we can't find specific items to recognize. So I don't want anyone to think that they have to go out of their way to an extent where they have to fill an item that they otherwise can't fill. It's just, I think, just to go back to what I said last time, just having more positivity at the beginning of our meetings and recognizing the people who really exceed in our district is, I think that's an important role for us to have. So I'm fully supportive of that idea. And I think there's a lot of different creative ways that we can really look into as far as finding people who are exceeding expectations, like the school newsletters, for example.
Any other comments from the committee? And the next discussion item that we have is the 2023-2024 school calendar. Superintendent, I'll let you start off with that, and then we'll go into questions, comments after she covers the necessary background on this topic.
So we needed to revisit the calendar again because so we were informed by RIDE that there is no mechanism for half-days. So while you could add time to the school day and you could have less school days by regulation, there is no way that you can have a half-day. So we needed to remove all of the half-days from the calendar for next year. I do know it is something that they are looking at, but as of right now, we are not allowed to have any half-days at all. So I've removed all of those from the calendar. The calendar is the same, the dates are the same. It doesn't change our start or end date. I will flag for you right now that we just found out also that there will be a primary on September 5th, and then we have a special election on November 7th. Yeah, so they are working on finding alternative locations rather than the schools for voting Otherwise, we may have to close those 2 days, which one is the day after Labor Day. We're just getting started. And then the other one would be November 2nd, which would change the calendar and add 2 additional school days onto the year. Right now, they're down to 1 school. So we're working with the canvassing office to see what we can do. So I will revisit that with you when I have more information, but I did want to flag it for you.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
Did you say we're down to just 1 school needed to be for a polling location?
Yes. They initially had asked us to use 7. We've kind of, they've been looking for other locations, and they've been able to secure other locations in the city for 6 of the locations they had originally asked for. I honestly would prefer not to close school those 2 days if we don't have to, since it is a special election and it's not every district in the state that is facing this. And the timing of it being the day after Labor Day, we've just started school, so we're bringing students in for a couple of days and then we're sending them home for, a 4-day weekend, which, we have students that have a difficult time transitioning back, and I don't think that that's really a great thing to do if we don't have to.
I think you made a great point. It does not affect our whole city, the primary election, if I'm correct, right?
It doesn't affect the whole state.
The state, okay,
Yeah.
so
it's
it would affect the whole city?
It would.
Everyone has, okay, so who makes the decision to open up all of our schools for, is it our canvassing office, or
So
is it?
our canvassing office has, needs to secure the location. Leslie's been working to secure different locations other than schools.
Is there anything we can do as elected officials to, I agree with you, the Labor Day one is to put kids in school and then to take them right out for 2 days. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
why even start?
Yeah, we're down to, I'm hoping that we can work through that 1 school, even if it's, even if we come up with a plan to use maybe a spot in that school that we can secure. That's kind of what we're looking at this point if we need to, but I'll bring that before the committee once I have a solid plan. They're working really hard. The city's been very cooperative. It's not, I mean, they get the dates. They can't control that, so they're working really hard to, to work around it.
No, thank you for the update, because I feel a lot more comfortable knowing it way ahead of time and knowing that it's something that clearly
could happen.
It's still a negotiation though, since we moved from all of our schools to 1. That's good though. At least we've made that improvement so far. Definitely keep us updated with that. And at the end of the day, it's our student. It's our students that are our priority. So from there on, it's they'll figure out what they have to on their end. But I'm in agreement with trying to avoid closing the school on the September 5th, definitely. Any other comments or questions about the school calendar? All right. Next item, please.
Next item is action items.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to table the item 4 for the school buildings visitation policy and protocol second read. Is there a motion to table?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Table that. And for item 5, is there a motion to approve the revised 2023-2024 school calendar that was presented to us? Any additional changes will come at a future time, but this is what is up for us to vote on today. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Calendar is approved. Are there any announcements tonight? I think all the announcements were covered today throughout the meeting, which is nice.
Well,
yep.
So, I mean, provided in our packet was information regarding acceptable use policy, computer technology, internet, and Google for faculty, staff, and students.
Sorry, is your mic?
In our packet was acceptable use policy for computers, technology, internet, and Google for faculty, staff, and students. It was provided in our packet, however, we haven't touched on it. I was wondering if, that's something that we could touch on for now, or is that something that we're planning on putting on the next agenda?
So I had asked that to be added to our packets, more of an informational subject, but if you would like that to be added for discussion for the next meeting, I could definitely do that as well.
Sure, yeah.
Would you like that under discussion, or is that something on policy that you would prefer to have under that? I want to
talk about it first, right?
Absolutely. I mean, can we have a discussion right now? Or?
we wouldn't be able to, because
Okay,
it's not on the agenda.
so we can put on
But-
as a discussion
But we
for-
can have it under discussion, and then if there's any additional recommendations from there, we can always have a further discussion at our next meeting to change it to like the policy, if, part of the agenda at any future. But for the next one, it'll be under discussion.
Great.
If that's okay.
Do we know if there's an intention to have a second meeting this month?
So that is also something I wanted to ask. As of right now, I am not informed of any pertinent items that need to be discussed this meeting, especially because we just covered the construction items for this month at today's meeting. Do you foresee anything else, Superintendent, so far that may be pertinent for this month? Or anyone else?
I think the high
That's-
school's packed.
that's-
I mean, the high
I'm
school's
not-
busy every
Yeah,
day.
I'm not sure
If you
we're
look
out
at your-
every night.
I was going to say that too. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, especially with this. Mays are very jam-packed, as we know.
Sunday, 8 a.m., I'm free.
So,
busy month.
is there any other items that anyone here would like to have covered this month? If not, we can just go back to, where I should say we should just have then our regular scheduled meeting for June. Wow, June. So if everyone's okay with that? Just have a June meeting for our next meetup? Okay. All right. That doesn't require a vote because that's just a scheduling. All right, so no second meeting for the month of May. We'll meet up again in June.
Can I just ask a
Yes.
clarification? And I'm sorry, I'm still on the whole calendar thing. If RIDE doesn't let us have half days, what's going to happen with the high school next year? Okay, thank you. It just occurred to me as we're talking, and I'm like, and I looked to see if Ben was still here, and he's not, and I was like, okay, so if we can't do that, how is that? Okay, well, we'll revisit that.
We're waiting for additional information, but right now, and it's in legislation, actually. So I do think it's, there's been some pushback from the districts because we are using that for professional development, and so I'm going to wait to see how it develops, but right now, there is no way that we're supposed to be shortening the day. There's no make-up time that you can propose to do that.
Fair enough, then. Thank you. Sorry.
All right, any announcements, any additional announcements? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second it.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.